The latest snapshot of the country's job market is due out this morning, and it's set to give us a clearer indication of how the economy's tracking. Unemployment has, of course, been ticking up as businesses and the government cut back, but the Household Labour Force survey numbers could give us an indication of whether things are starting to stabilise or if there is still more pain to come. Economist Shamubeel Eaqub is with us this morning. Kia ora, good morning, Shamubeel.
Kia ora.
What are you expecting to see from these numbers? Unemployment still further to rise?
Yeah, a small increase. We've seen, for example, from the job seeker numbers, they're still tracking up just a little bit. But we're also seeing some good news in terms of employment has stabilized. We're starting to see job ads picking up. So there's a little bit of good news. It feels like we're near the bottom. And the data today will really give us a bit more of a sense of how it's panning out for different parts of New Zealand. Last quarter, we saw that it was very much a story about young people losing jobs. It was men in industries like construction. So, the regional story, all of those variations and the detail is going to be really interesting to look at how the recovery is starting to take shape.
So even though unemployment is likely to tick up further, you're expecting to see some signs that the recovery has started. What is it you're specifically looking to tell us that?
We're looking for a stop in job losses. So I guess it's less bad news rather than more good news. So, when the kind of recovery is kind of imminent, we should expect to see job losses kind of petering out. And we're kind of near the bottom of this economic cycle, I think. And the main reason for that is we're seeing some really good news, particularly out of the South Island. We're starting to see some pretty good growth in terms of jobs. We're starting to see some good growth in job ads. So there are some kind of hints that there are parts of the economy that are at least picking up from the bottom.
Shamubeel, though, is that just the dairy effect? We've got dairy prices near record highs. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars coming to the average farmer in time from the sale of mainland and the like. So is there strength elsewhere?
There is. So in the South Island, it's pretty broad-based. So for example, we're seeing increases in building concerns. We're seeing increases in not just dairy prices, but also sheep and beef prices. We're seeing pretty good tourism numbers in the South Island, much more so in the North Island. So the recovery in the South Island so far has been a little bit more broad-based than just dairy. And that's a really good thing because we do want that recovery coming through. But there's still quite a lot of weakness in other parts of New Zealand, particularly in the urban centres and places like Auckland and Wellington that are taking longer to recover. So it is still very much the early part. But in not forgetting just the impact that it has had on people, there have been some significant job losses and reduction in hours. That's something that we've been watching very closely, that while people haven't been losing jobs, they've got fewer hours, people are moving to part-time work, and that just makes it really hard for people to manage the cost of living that's going through, particularly necessities like food, interest rates, insurance, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, just because you have a job doesn't mean that everything is easy. On that note, are we still likely to see another cut to interest rates later this month, regardless of what this data shows today?
Yeah, look, I think the Reserve Bank needs to keep pushing interest rates lower just a bit further. So my expectation is they should absolutely go in November. And there's a very strong likelihood that they will have to do one more in February, mainly because those urban parts of the economy, which are still a very large part of New Zealand, are not yet in recovery mode. So interest rates are kind of one part of it because it affects 1/3 of households who have debt. The other 2/3 of New Zealanders just need a really big kickstart in terms of both households and businesses borrowing a bit more money and starting those investment projects that have been shelved for a couple of years.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, economist Shamubeel Eaqub, looking ahead to that Household Labour Force data, which is going to tell us about the unemployment rate. Thanks for your time this morning.